Hey church, thank you for joining me on this beautiful Easter weekend as we continue to journey through the book of Psalm. Today we look at Psalm 20, and before we do that, I'd like to give you a context about this psalm. This psalm was written at a time when David and the people of Israel were preparing themselves for a war. If you'd like to know more about this, you can read 2 Samuel chapter 10, and it gives you a historic account of what was happening. And what really spiked my interest was this is how they were preparing for a war. If you read verses 1 to 5, which is on the screen, these are the words of the people praying, worshiping. They're praying for David. They're saying, verse 2, may he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. This is what the people of Israel were doing. This was their preparation. They were not cleaning their swords or getting their rifles ready, but they were sat together and praying and in devotion to their God, getting themselves ready for battle. And that really spoke to me. And David and his people knew that the true might was not in their weaponry, but it was in their worship. Not in their firepower, but in God's power. You see, this is how the people of Israel were displaying their faithfulness to their God by prayer, worship, and devotion. And that really spoke to me as I was reading through these first 5 verses. And this was like a worship boot camp for the Israelites. If you send somebody to the army, if somebody wants to join the army, he or she is sent to a training camp, which is also known as the boot camp, right? And in this training camp is far away, it's confined, it's cut away from all the worldly pleasures and comforts and luxury and family. And these guys are put together in one place and they go through rigorous training for maybe 2 or 3 years, training over their bodies, over their minds. And once they come out of the training, they're ready for battle. Then they are sent to different regiments. Isn't that very similar to what's happening right now? In this season that we are in, it feels like we are confined, cut away from everything, cut away from the normality of life. It feels like we are, in some sort of when I was reading this, I felt like God was saying we are in a boot camp. And I really felt that for a lot of us, God was saying that He's preparing us for something that is to come. Something that is to come. This is our worship boot camp. God is preparing us for a battle. If you thought this season was a battle, then you're so far away from the truth. I believe there is something that God is preparing our church. God is preparing you. God is preparing me. God is preparing all of us for something that is to come. So here's the question I'd like for you to ask yourself. How are you preparing yourself for the battle? Is this your boot camp? Moving on, and this is David's response from verse 6. He says, now this I know, the Lord gives victory to His anointed. He answers him from His heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of His right hand. And this is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Verse 7, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They are brought down to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm. You see, David already declares victory even before the battle starts. Verse 8, he says, I see you, enemy, and I see you brought down to your knees and fall. And he also sees his enemies standing with their huge army, maybe hundreds upon hundreds of people, standing mounted on their horses, on their chariots, ready to attack his people. And he says, you have put your trust in your chariots, you have put your trust in your horses, but I have placed my trust in the name of my Lord, my God. And that really spoke to me. You and I today are not in a physical battle or in a physical war, but we are in a spiritual warfare. And what happens is, for most of us, what we've done over the course of our life is that we've replaced God with our own horses and our own chariots. Maybe a lot of us have put our dependency, our trust in our money, in our wealth, in our jobs, in our workplaces, in our boss, in the amount of power that we have in our society. Maybe we come from an influential family, we come from an influential background, maybe a strong academic background, maybe titles and laurels. Maybe for a lot of us it is our position in our society, position in church. Whatever that has replaced God, and we've put our trust in them, those are our horses and our chariots. A lot of times in my life, I've always tried to do things on my own. Sometimes I still do it. I think I can do this without God. I think I can make this thing successful without my God. Today, if you have your notepads ready, I'd like you to write down what are some of the chariots and horses in your life. Basically, what I'm asking us to do is look into those, introspect ourselves and look into those areas where we need to identify those things that have replaced God and we've put our trust in them. In the King James Version, the same verse reads out, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we remember the name of the Lord our God." Yesterday we celebrated communion as a global church, and Pastor G and H brought such a profound teaching about the cross and the blood and the body that was sacrificed for us. Pastor G kept highlighting the words of Jesus to his disciples where he says, "When I break this body and I give it to you, remember me. When you eat this, remember me. When you drink this blood, when you drink this wine, remember me." And this is exactly what David does many hundreds years before. He says, some put their trust in different things, but Lord, I remember you. I remember the name of the Lord our God. There's power in the name of our Lord. Jesus authorizes us to pray in his name. The scriptures also say that the name of the Lord is a strong and mighty tower, a name that we can take refuge in. And so what I'm asking us to do is, what are we replacing that name with in our lives? So guys, can I ask us to get into a time of prayer and devotion and rephrase this verse 7 and write it in our own words, saying, God, all along I've put my trust in my chariots, in my horses, but today I remember the body and the blood that was sacrificed on the cross for me. And with that, I know my battle is won. The victory is already mine. And just like David in verse 8, I'm going to stand up and declare victory. I'm going to say, I rise up and I stand firm. No matter what happens around me, I will rise up and I will stand firm by the power of your name. So church, I really hope that this psalm encouraged you and and helps you analyze your life and draw you closer to our God. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for Psalm 21.